Mr. Winter! A white flash as the figure sprinted her last few yards at him, her cloak inadvertently opening. Harriet Moore. Her face was entirely wet, yet not entirely from the rain, such was clear from the reddened distress in her eyes. Miss Moore, it's uncommon wet, and only becoming worse. To where shall I take you? Miss Moore looked away and stumbled for words that did not answer in the crescendoing elements. She eventually became overwhelmed and began to weep. Mr. Winter, I am come to see you. There was not much height difference between the two of them, but still she looked up at him, warming him in the manner he terribly feared, to which his mind became dosed with riotous chemistry. Well, come on then, he said, grabbing her hand and pulling her into Woodbridge woods for shelter. They stormed the underbrush toward the small path known to both of them, which led to a crop of olden oaks that were prized by the locals for their quality of shelter in a blow. There it was wet but tolerable, as they stood alongside one's particularly massive trunk. "Oh, Mr. Winter, I have something horrible to say to you." "Miss Moore," he burst out, "I have something for you as well. I beg before you do any damage that you hear me first, that I may spare you such. I was headed to Woodbridge to call." "Oh, indeed?" she returned. Mr. Winter felt the passage of time become gnarled, as if the great perpetual clock of the wood was gently amiss. Some 10 fathoms above, the wind did dart to and fro through their trees' oldest branches, causing sharpened wisps of sound to cry hurry to the already shortened day. But below there was no such haste. Droplets lazily fell from the lowest branches, and quietly and flatly puttered upon the forest litter, and the gusts were never quite so quarrelsome as to be the cause of their reddened cheeks. He was then vaguely aware of the harm he was then to accomplish, but more so he was paradoxically at ease, for this woman calmed him and kept him from suffering the work of the clock, that he was indifferent to the consequences of the next year, the next month, or the next day. "Miss Moore, Harriet, I love you." "Oh," she welled up, for she was that moment emancipated from the future pain of confinement. "But I cannot defy your uncle or the man he sees fit to join you to. He has been nothing but dear and trusting in me, and I cannot betray that for the sake of my own emotive desire. I trust this does not grieve you terribly, for I did perceive at dinner, last we met, that what enchantment you did, if at all, find in me was equally balanced, or perhaps more so, by that of the man across the table from you. I've played an arse's game these many months during my daily, uncompanioned reflections, which was motivated by my ignorance, firstly of your interactions with suitable men, deficiently concluding that I was treated uncommonly, and secondly, that, for your part, there has been no end to these, and certainly you have learned diplomacy and the facility to move unscathed from one prospect to the next until the most excellent presents at the proper time, or until your uncle's gavel has been laid. This pinked her countenance greatly, adding several degrees of color to its wounded scowl. Tears flowed, but she did not close her pained eyes or sob. The momentary brush of safety that kept Mr. Winter thoroughly honest did so affect her that she had no inhibition to engage in a worthwhile fight. "No, sir, I reject this. Vigorously I do. Thomas Winter, if indeed any of this you said of me were true, why, by heaven, would you find me almost knee-deep in muck, traversing heavily toward your home without the benefit of a horse or carriage on such a dark and lonesome day? You must know that had I thusly brought attention to myself by endeavoring to travel by such means, it would have been at the cost of the secret which not a maid, mouse, or mother, or even my cousin, nay, my beloved sister, knows anything of." Your sister, Miss Moore?" "Yes, sir, that from the Sunday's morn in which we chanced upon each other, and I told you of the ladyless manner in which I as a child rode my father's horse upon my uncle's distant property, and how that self-same man, the one you now hold in grace, was my family's benefactor, and thusly we were obliged during that period to quit Yorkshire and put up at Woodbridge Parish, that from such day onward heaven was not to be looked upon forwardly, no wine or music longer paid opportunity to cause one's arrival at the precipice of misery, and bees of the field would sting ever more gently, for in every knock at the door, every bearing of the apple's blossom the little King Street girl would bring to me, and every step from Woodbridge to Hedgely I have loved you. It is in you, sir, that I find excellence. No, hear me more," she continued, stoutly cutting his desire to reply.